Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to our class on Nectar of Devotion, a summary study. We are studying chapter 1 of this book, the title of which is Characteristics of Pure Devotional Service, and this is our 5th class. So as usual, we will start the program by doing Mangalacharan, by invoking auspiciousness, taking blessings from Shri Radha Krishna and from Srila Prabhupada, our ISKCON's founder acharya. Today's Mangalacharan was planned to be recited by Sunanda Mataji, but she is not available today. So would request from the assembled devotees if anyone would like to volunteer to chant the Mangalacharan.
Yes,
I will do it, Prabhu.
Okay, we have 2 candidates. Very nice for your enthusiasm. Any who would like to chant, please decide.
let Manish Prabhuji do it.
Okay,
Okay,
Manish
धन्यवाद Prabhu.
Yeah, please.
ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुमीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं शापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरौ श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहिता कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे श्री वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Thank you, Manish Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Very nicely chanted, very nicely recited, very nice pronunciation. Thank you. Okay, so now we will move to the next item, and the next item is the summary of the class number 4. Class number 4. This is the summary. Summary was planned to be shared by Sita ji from Kuala Lumpur, but Mataji's health is not well, so I will do this summary today. Unless anyone else from the assembled devotees would like to do. I have already shared the summary in WhatsApp group, so if anyone would like to volunteer even for the summary also, I'm okay. But since this might require a little preparation, I leave it up to you if you want me to do it or anyone would like to volunteer. Okay, then in case nobody is volunteering, then maybe let me try to do it. So this was on class number 4. Primarily what we discussed was about the qualities of pure devotional service, Uttama Bhakti. We had already started the discussion on these qualities and we were discussing Kleshagni. And in the previous class, we continued our discussion on Kleshagni. Some aspects of Kleshagni we already discussed in class number 3. But in class number 4, we discussed few other qualities of Kleshagni. That's, I think, we can continue to share in this recap. So the remaining aspects of Kleshagni was Uttama Bhakti destroys Bijam. Acts like charity, austerity does not destroy Bijam. Now what is this Bijam? Bijam is the material desires within our heart. Because of these material desires, we do some sinful activities. So what we discussed was that Kleshagni is the characteristic of Uttama Bhakti, and it destroys Bijam, which means it destroys material desire. If there is some material desire within our heart, Uttama Bhakti destroys that. In contrary to Uttama Bhakti or pure devotional service, some activities like doing charity, doing austerity, etc., these does not destroy Kleshagni. And Srila Rupa Goswami has been giving some references, and we discussed 3 references. One reference was the story of Ajamil. Then the second example we gave was a person who is excessively indulging into sexual activities. And the third example we gave was elephant putting dust. So Ajamil's story was something like this, that he was born in a Brahmana family. He was doing all the activities of Brahmanical culture, doing his Vedic study, giving charity, doing his yajna, tapa, etc., etc. But still, the material desires were there within his heart. And why are we saying so? Because when Ajamil saw a Shudra and Shudrani embracing, he also got that desire and actually fall down from his Brahmanical position. He himself became very, very lusty. He married a prostitute and led a very sinful life till a very advanced stage. So the idea was that Ajamil, although being a Brahmana, doing all these acts of charity, austerity, these acts could not save him from falling down into sinful life. But at the advanced stage of life, when he thus understood and spoke, chanted the words of holy name of Narayan, he got this realization back that how the holy name of the Lord is so powerful. And then he repented and went to Haridwar. For 12 years he did engage himself into pure devotional service and managed to find successful result going back to Godhead after the end of his life. So that was the story of Ajamil. Similarly, we discussed something very similar in the example of excessive sex indulgence. So what happens is, when a person excessively indulges into adulterated sex, he may get various kind of diseases like syphilis, like AIDS, gonorrhea, etc., etc. So there is a treatment for these kind of physical diseases available in the medical science. However, the medicine or this medical treatment can treat the external symptoms of these disease, but these medical treatment cannot treat or cannot cure the desire of indulging into sex from the heart of the person. And for that, we need something much more powerful, much more potent, and that is something we are describing about Uttama Bhakti. So here, medical treatment is compared with acts like charity, austerity, but removing bad desires altogether can only happen with processes like Uttama Bhakti. Similarly, the example of elephant takes bath, but when it comes out of the water, it puts dust. So the elephant, although externally has cleaned itself, but the dirty desires are not gone from the heart, and that is why when he comes out from the water, it puts dust on all over its body. So with these examples, Srila Rupa Goswami is trying to explain the potency of Uttama Bhakti, that it can destroy material desires. Then we further discussed how Uttama Bhakti also destroys avidya, ignorance. And what is this ignorance? This ignorance is primarily that Krishna is the supreme master and enjoyer. When the living entity forgets this, then it starts to lead a life according to its own whims and fancies, and engages himself or herself into materialistic activities, and then the cycle of bijam, papam, and aprarabdha karma, all that continue to start. So we ended our discussion on Kleshagni by understanding that the root cause of avidya is also destroyed. So we primarily what we discussed what is klesha. Klesha comes because of starting from avidya, then comes bijam, then comes papam. From papam we understood prarabdha, aprarabdha. In aprarabdha we also understood kutam and bijam and phalonmukam, etc. So overall we understood that bhakti destroys, pure devotional service destroys each of these stages of klesha, right starting from avidya. Although avidya is a stage which gets destroyed uh, much later compared to the other advanced stages of klesha, but we understood that with pure devotional service, each and every stage of this can be destroyed. Then we came to the second quality of Uttama Bhakti, which was Shubhada. Shubha means auspiciousness, Da means giver. So Uttama Bhakti is the giver of all auspiciousness. Here we also discussed that how Kleshagni and Shubhada are related, because when all the kleshas are destroyed, then auspiciousness is bound to come in our life. That's how we related both Shubha and Kleshagni. Then we discussed how Shubhada is manifested with the help of pure devotional service in 4 ways. And these 4 ways are that pure devotional service benefits everyone, attracts everyone, bestows all good qualities, and gives superior happiness. And we discussed each of those one by one. First of all, we discussed about the first 2, benefits everyone and attracts everyone. And the reasoning we gave was a devotee always works for the welfare of others. So he becomes attractive to everyone. So when the devotee is always every time is relating everyone in the world, be it material, be it a living entity or so, every time he relates everyone and every being in connection with Lord Krishna, he always works for their welfare. So when he works for the welfare of others, then he becomes very, very lovable for everyone in the world. And that's what it means, that it benefits everyone. Bhakti, when it manifests in some person's life, he becomes very, very paropkari. He becomes very, very caring for others. So when he cares for others, everyone starts to get attracted towards such a person. A devotee works for the welfare of others, so he becomes attractive to everyone. Then the third one, bestows all good qualities. With bhakti, one can develop good qualities of demigods. We gave this, Srila Rupa Goswami gave this reference from the scripture, that how by practice of bhakti, one developed the good qualities of the devatas. Then the fourth one was, gives superior happiness. And what kind of happiness we will discuss today also, this topic on happiness, when we discuss the fifth quality, Sandranand Visheshatma. We will discuss it today. But here, what we discussed was that it gives superior happiness. And here we discussed this, that modern education versus bhakti education. And even if a devotee is uneducated, maybe he has not done good education like good schooling or university education, etc. But if a person is a devotee, he has good faith in the words of the Lord, he has studied Bhagavad Gita, he has studied Ramayana, and all these very wonderful scriptures he has studied, he would develop all these good qualities of a bhakta, even though he has not gone to a school, he has not gone to a university. And he can easily stay away from bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, intoxication. He can easily stay away, although he has not enrolled herself or himself into these modern schools and educational institutes. So what it means is that it gives superior happiness. On the contrary, we see that people who are established on very high learned positions in the society, I gave you an example of the president of a very important country in the world, how that president of that country actually could not control his lusty desires and got engaged in lusty activities with his own office assistant. So on the contrary, we see many simple people who are devotional at heart, who are truly devoted towards the Lord, and they develop all these good qualities. So why they are able to do so? Because bhakti gives superior happiness. And when we also studied bhakti gives superior happiness, we gave this example from the Shastra that it includes and surpasses the material happiness and Brahman happiness. So, superior happiness, this point we discuss in this way, that we discuss three types of happiness. Happiness that we derive from materialistic pleasures, happiness that we derive from liberation, or there is a happiness, there is a quality of happiness when somebody gets liberated, that is called Brahman happiness. And the third one is the happiness due to bhakti. So we discussed that when we are getting happiness of bhakti, this happiness is eternal. Happiness due to bhakti is eternal. Eternal means duration wise it lasts for eternity. Material happiness lasts only for some time. Brahman happiness, or happiness due to impersonal Brahman or moksha or liberation, also does not last forever. When people don't get satisfied in that happiness, they once again fall down. So one aspect was duration, it is eternal. And the second aspect was that it includes the happiness of all other types of happiness. It includes the happiness of material happiness also. It includes the happiness of the happiness due to impersonal liberation also. So one is the quantity, and the another one is the duration. So duration is eternal, and quantity, it surpasses the quantity of happiness from all other different type of happiness. So this is something which we discussed in our previous class, and we will continue our discussion from the third quality in the class today, and that was moksha laghuta krit. But before I jump to moksha laghuta krit, I would like to just go back to the initial slide where we were discussing about the chapter 1, what are the different topics. This is slide number 7. Where are we now? Just to give you an idea, we have already discussed in our previous class about the Mangalacharan part, where we discussed about the book's objective and namaskar, benediction to the reader, what are the different divisions. Then we also discussed about very much in detail about the definition of the pure devotional service, Uttama Bhakti, devotional definition by Rup Goswami, definition by Narad Pancharatra, and definition from Srimad Bhagavatam. We have already covered this. In the previous class, in class number 4, we have covered the topic, completed the topic on Kleshagni. We just now recap also on this topic, and we also discussed Shubhada. So ultimately, this chapter 1, if you remember, we understood chapter 1 is known as wave 1 of Eastern division of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Now, in today's class, we will do the rest. Moksha Laghutakrat, Sudurlabha, Sandranand Visheshatma, and Shri Krishna Akarshini. We will discuss all these remaining 4 other qualities of pure devotional service. And finally, there is a conclusion given by Srila Rupa Goswami, verse number 44 to 46. So ultimately, we are going to discuss from verse number 33 to verse number 46 in the class today. So that's where we are, and we will try to complete this till the 46th verse in today's class. So let me go back to the 42nd slide where the discussion on Moksha Laghutakrat starts. So we have covered 2 qualities. One is Kleshagni, pure devotional service destroys all the suffering, and it is auspicious, Shubhada. So these 2 have been discussed. The remaining 4 are Moksha Laghutakrat, and then Sudurlabha, then Sandra Anand Visheshatma, 5th one, and the 6th one is Shri Krishna Akarshini. So let us start from the 3rd one, which is Moksha Laghuta Krit. Now this is Sanskrit, Moksh Laghuta Krit. Let us understand what is meant by Moksh Laghuta Krit. Moksh means liberation. Liberation means when we get out, when we get freedom from this material existence, we merge into or we enter into the spiritual realm where we don't get these miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. That is known as moksha. That is called as liberation. Laghuta. Laghu means small. So laghuta means insignificant, and krit means makes. So moksha laghuta krit is the third quality of pure bhakti, uttama bhakti, and it means bhakti makes liberation look insignificant. Bhakti makes liberation look insignificant. So how bhakti can make liberation look insignificant? See, liberation in itself is a very exalted position in a spiritual journey of an individual. And if somebody is capable or eligible to get liberation, that is not a mean thing, that is not a small thing. But here, what we are discussing is that bhakti can actually make liberation or moksha itself very insignificant. And here, Srila Rupa Goswami in the 33rd verse of chapter number 1 of Nectar of Devotion, he makes this statement: when even a little attraction for the Lord grows in the heart, the four Purusharthas, Artha, Dharma, Kam, and Moksha, become like grass. So this is what Srila Rupa Goswami is mentioning in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So this is a statement by Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion gives a reference from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is a book by on the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an incarnation of Lord Krishna. I would say he is Krishna himself in the form of his devotee. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Chaitanya Leela, there is a very, very sweet, very nice, sweet pastime that comes, and that pastime is of a person, of a Brahmana named Sridhar. And this Brahmana Sridhar used to sell bananas. He was a very poor, very poverty-stricken person. He had very, very limited means. He had very, very limited resources. He would wear very tattered clothes, but he would sell bananas to the people, and is known as Kola Vecha Sridhar. So Kola Vecha, Vecha actually is very much related with the word, Hindi word called Becha. So Becha means seller, and Kola is Bengali for Kela. Kela means banana in Hindi. So Kola Vecha Sridhar. So a story of a banana seller Sridhar, which is a Brahmana. Now the story is something like this, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to purchase various things from this Kola Vecha Sridhar, bananas, and he would keep some other items also, but primarily he was known as banana seller. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very fond of this person Sridhar, because Sridhar was a very attached devotee of the Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood, he knew that Sridhar is a very, very exalted devotee. He is a pure devotee of the Lord. So he would come many times to Kola Vecha Sridhar. He would actually look for excuses that how he can come to Kola Vecha Sridhar and engage in some discussion, in some dealings with him. And he would kind of tease him, make him irritate, and so on, because he was a seller, he was a business person. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would actually bargain a lot from this Brahmana banana seller. And he would bargain to such an extent that he would even demand that, why don't you give all this to me for free? So to that extent, he would try to irritate or to tease Sridhar. But Sridhar would understand, oh, this person is a Brahmana. Why should I argue with this person who is a Brahmana? So he had a lot of respect for these Brahmanical culture, Sridhar. And sometimes he would even give his fruits free to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So externally, Sridhar would like show that he is not feeling happy giving things free to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But whenever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come to Sridhar, he would feel very, very blissful. Sridhar would feel very blissful because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And when the Lord is directly standing in front of you, the bliss is expected to arrive in your heart. So he would feel very blissful. And out of that feeling of bliss, he would give the bananas. So Sridhar also would want that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would come, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also look forward to the opportunity how he can deal with Sridhar. So both this used to continue every time in that pastime. So so what happened was that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, once he was exhibiting his Mahaprakash Leela. Mahaprakash Leela is something very similar to, you can say that like Krishna showed his universal form to Arjuna. So here in this Mahaprakash Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed his 6-armed form to his associates. And he invited Sridhar also on that occasion. So the point is, long story short, the point I am trying to make is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much fond of Sridhar. And because he was very much impressed by Sridhar's devotion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once offered Sridhar, why don't you take Ashtasiddhis, mystic yogic powers, like we discussed about Siddhis in our previous class, Anima, Lagima, Prapti, and so on. So he offered him that you take all these Siddhis. And he offered him, even you take moksha, you take liberation. But Sridhar, Olaveja Sridhar, refused that I don't want Siddhis, I don't want any liberation. Only thing I want is your devotional service. So this is one reference. This is not given by Srila Rupa Goswami, but it is given by Srila Prabhupada in his summary study, Nectar of Devotion. So the point is, Moksha Laghuta Krit. The taste of devotional service, Uttama Bhakti, is so nice, so sweet, that the taste of moksha, liberation, is very, very laghu, very, very insignificant in front of pure devotional service. Now, let us see a reference that now Srila Rupa Goswami gives from Narad Pancharatra. And this comes in the 34th verse. So what is mentioned in Narad Pancharatra? So he has made this point in verse number 33, that devotional service makes liberation look very, very insignificant. And in support of that point, now he's quoting from scripture, which is from Narad Pancharatra. So what does Narad Pancharatra says? All the siddhis headed by liberation and all astonishing material pleasures. So there are two things: siddhis headed by liberation and astonishing material pleasures follow after the great goddess called Hari Bhakti, like fearful maid servants. Narad Pancharatra. So if you see a queen, when the queen moves, when a queen goes from one place to the another place, there are many, many dasis, there are many, many maid servants who are following the queen. So if a queen decides to take a turn towards right, the maid servants will follow right. If a queen decides to turn left, the maid servants follow left. Like that, and with the help of an analogy from Narad Pancharatra, Srila Rupa Goswami is giving this reference. So what are the maid servants here? Maid servants are siddhis and material pleasures. So these maid servants are following the queen, the Hari Bhakti. So that is what a reference Srila Rupa Goswami is giving. So, and Prabhupada in the summary study is writing here, pure devotee does not lack any kind of happiness. He does not want anything but service. Even if he has another desire, Lord fulfills without devotees asking. So Srila Prabhupada is making this point very, very clear, that people may think by reading this that material pleasures. So if we do Hari Bhakti, probably we will be devoid of material pleasures. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is clarifying. No, pure devotee does not lack any kind of happiness. Although the intention of pure devotee is he does not want any happiness or any material pleasure or any liberation or any siddhi. He only wants service. But if at all there is some desire, some material desire is there in the heart of the devotee, although he does not asking from the Lord, but the Lord fulfills that devotee's desires without him asking for that desire. So that is the power and potency of pure devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami is explaining it from Narad Pancharatra. So this is about the third quality, which is Moksha Laghuta Krit. Only very small 3 paragraphs are given on Moksha Laghuta Krit, paragraph number 34 to 36 in Nectar of Devotion. You can read that. The gist of it we have discussed here just now. Okay. Now moving to the fourth quality of pure devotional service or Uttama Bhakti, and that is Sudurlabha. So pure devotional service is Sudurlabha. Durlabha is a Hindi word also. It's a Sanskrit word also. Durlabha means, labha means to obtain. Dur means very, very difficult. Durlabha, very difficult to obtain. So that means very rare. Generally, which is very difficult to obtain is rare because it is difficult to obtain. And Su, so there is a qualifier in front of Durlabha. Su means very, extremely, extremely rare. So Bhakti is very rare to achieve. Bhakti is very rare to achieve. This is the fourth quality. And this topic has been discussed in Nectar of Devotion in 37, 38, 39 and 40th paragraph. So Srila Rupa Goswami now makes a statement that Bhakti is rare in 2 ways. So this verse number 35 is coming from Srila Rupa Goswami. And then later on, Srila Rupa Goswami will present references from the Vedic scriptures to support his statement. He says Bhakti is rare in 2 ways. So twofold rarity of Bhava Bhakti is what? Sadhana without asakti and sadhana with asakti. So let me share with you another slide also to understand what does it mean. Sadhana without asakti and sadhana with asakti. What it means is, sadhana here means performing various activities for our spiritual advancement, performing various activities for moving out from this material world, for coming out from this material world. So there are many activities, many transcendental activities or spiritual activities different people adopt to overcome this bhavarog, to overcome this material existence. And some of these examples of sadhana are mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy. Mystic yoga is something like the siddhis that I just mentioned to you in the previous classes. Sankhya philosophy, pious work. Pious work means punya, maybe like giving charity and so on. That is pious work. Vedic study, studying the Vedas. Austerity means tapasya. Renunciation means vairagya, living household life, living like a renunciant, living like a mendicant and so on. So these are various sadhanas. Sadhana means various activities which different transcendentalists who want to come out from this material existence may do. But here the qualification is that if we do these kind of activities without asakti, asakti means attachment. Asakti of what? Asakti of the Lord, asakti of Lord Krishna, asakti of the Lord Krishna or Vishnu Tattvas or expansions of Krishna or people connected with Krishna. So doing all these sadhana without asakti and doing this sadhana with asakti. So doing sadhana without asakti means it is something like making our own endeavor without having Lord as the focus of those endeavors. Just simply endeavoring without Lord in the central picture. So what it means is sadhana without asakti means even if practiced profusely. Profusely means too much, a lot of time, very dedicatedly we are doing it. We are doing it for a long time. We are doing it number of times. That is profusely. Even if practiced profusely for a long time, if one does not have attachment to Krishna, Bhava Bhakti cannot be attained. Bhava Bhakti means bhakti or devotional service in ecstasy, bhav, in ecstasy, in joy. Even if practiced profusely for a long time, if one does not have attachment to Krishna, bhava bhakti cannot be attained. So what this means in short is that keep on endeavoring Sankhya, keep on endeavoring mystic yoga, keep on endeavoring pious activities, etc., 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 Vairagya, and so on. But if Lord Krishna's attachment is not there, then it is simply a endeavor. It will not lead you to bhakti at all. It will not take you towards devotion of the Lord at all. So that is the position of sadhana without asakti. Bhava bhakti cannot be attained. Then sadhana with asakti. Even if we are doing sadhana, even if we are doing these various activities with asakti, with attraction towards the Lord, with attachment towards the Lord, then also Lord gives it with very, very difficulty, with lot of difficulty. He does not give it quickly. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो फ्री में बड़ी जल्दी दे देते हैं. Even if we are doing it with asakti, even if practiced with attachment, asakti, Krishna does not give bhav bhakti so quickly. So it does not mean that Krishna does not give it at all. It does not mean that. What it means is, because we are talking about rarity, sudurlabha. So if we do it without asakti, no question about it, no chance. But even if you do it with asakti, then also Krishna gives it with difficulty, with lot of difficulty. Now, in order to prove his point, Srila Rupa Goswami starts giving references. So the first reference comes from Tantra Shastra, the first type of rarity. What does it say? Jnanata sulabha muktir bhuktir yagyadi punyatah seyam sadhana sahasraira hari bhakti sudurlabha hari bhakti sudurlabha. What it means, each of these lines. Jnanata sulabha muktir. Liberation is easily attained by Gyan. If you are following the path of Gyan, which means studying about impersonal Brahman, meditating on impersonal Brahman, that is the path of Gyan. Then liberation is easily attained. Bhuktir yagyadi punyataha. Bhuktir means material enjoyment. If you want material enjoyment, you want good health, you want lot of wealth, you want fame, power, etc., etc., you can do it, you can achieve it very easily by doing yagya adi, and punyataha, and by punya karma. You can do that. You can give charity, you can do a lot of other punya activities. So what will be the result of it? You can get material enjoyment, and that is easy to obtain. But seyam sadhana sahasrair. However, bhava bhakti cannot be easily attained. Even if one practices thousands of practices, that is sadhana, other than bhakti. Seyam sadhana sahasrar hari bhakti sudurlabha. So that's what it means. Even if you do all this sadhana, so here sadhana means the same thing: mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, pious work, Vedic activity, austerity, renunciation, yajna, jnana, tap, ityadi, ityadi, etc., etc. You can do all those practices, but if it is without, if it is devoid of Hari Bhakti, if it is devoid of devotional attraction towards the Lord, then it is very, very durlabha. It is sudurlabha. It is not possible to attain. So that is the reference given for the first type of rarity from the Tantra Shastra. Now, in order to understand this first type of rarity, let us go a little deeper into this discussion. What this discussion, or when we go into the deeper aspect of this discussion, what are we trying to discuss here? We are trying to discuss one important point. Here it is mentioned liberation is easily attained. But this may seem contradictory to what we have studied in Srimad Bhagavad Gita in chapter number 12. In chapter number 12, verse number 5, when Arjuna asks Krishna, my dear Krishna, which is your preference, which is easy to do, devotional service to you or worshipping the impersonal Brahman, which is the easier most? Then Lord Krishna says, Klesho dik tarastesham. Klesho dik tarastesham means if you worship on impersonal Brahman, that is full of klesha, that is very, very difficult. But here we are studying liberation is easy to obtain. Now the point here is, devotees, that liberation is easy to attain even if we are doing it without bringing Lord into the center, without any attachment to the Lord. It is easy to attain. Pure devotional service is no question about it. It is not possible to attain. But here we need to understand what is actually meant by easy. So the point here is that easy is not so easy. How do we understand that? Jnana and karma produce their results only when executed with one pointed dedication on that process alone with great expertise. This dedication is attained only after thousands of attempts. So here we have to understand the context of easy. So here easy is not so easy. That's the clarification given in the commentary. Jnana and karma produce their result only when, now see how you get the result of jnana and karma, when executed with one pointed dedication, one single focus, and then alone with great expertise. So you need single pointed dedication, and you also need great skill. And how this great skill and dedication comes? This dedication is attained only after thousands of attempts. So keep on practicing, keep on practicing, keep on practicing. It might take even multiple lifetimes. Then you achieve this liberation. Then you achieve these material pleasures, punya, karma, and so on. So that is what. So if we are doing it without attachment to the Lord, bhakti is difficult to this kind of jnana and karma. Bhakti is even more difficult, or actually it is impossible. So on the contrary, we say here that bhakti is sudurlabha. But if this bhakti is done with attachment of the Lord, then it can be achieved very, very quickly. Here, there's a reference given, there's an example also given, which is coming from Srimad Bhagavatam. And then what Srimad Bhagavatam, canto number 2, chapter number 8, verse number 4 says, bhakti is easily and quickly attained. So here I have not given the full verse, but the gist of it is that it is also mentioned that bhakti is easily and quickly attained. Where did this reference come from? This comes from Bhagavatam. But in the same Bhagavatam, there is another example given. Narad Muni, in his previous life, as the son of a maid servant, could increase the taste of hearing about the Lord in the association of the Vedantists. So Narad Muni, who was simply a 5-year-old boy, and he was the son of a maid servant, Dasi Putra. He had not many resources. He did not come from a very affluent family, but only 5-year-old boy, simply by serving the Bhaktivedantas, he served only few devotees who came and stayed at their place for 4 months of the Chaturmasya period. He served them, he heard from them Krishna Katha. Simply by doing this menial service and hearing Krishna Katha, he developed this bhakti. So here we discussed in this verse that bhakti is not possible to attain if we do it without asakti. But here in this slide we are understanding that if we do it with asakti, it can be easily obtained. Now the conclusion from all this discussion is, so far, is we cannot attain bhakti by our endeavors alone. We do austerity, we do charity, we do Sankhya, we do mystic yoga, we do Vairagya, etc., etc. But if it is without asakti, without attachment to the Lord, alone, only by our endeavors, we cannot attain bhakti. So this is one conclusion. We can obtain bhakti only when Krishna decides to give it to us. Only when the Lord agrees, oh yes, now I think I should give my Uttama Bhakti, my Bhava Bhakti to this devotee. Then only we can attain that Bhava Bhakti. But now coming to the second rarity, sadhana with asakti. So we just now discussed about Narad Muni story and so on. But the point here, what Srila Rupa Goswami is making is that even if we do sadhana with asakti, we do dedicated sadhana, we do dedicated practice, and that too with attachment to the Lord, then also bhakti is Lord Krishna does not easily give bhakti, does not easily give his bhav bhakti or uttama bhakti. He does not give it. And from where this reference is coming, Rupa Goswami is giving this reference from Srimad Bhagavatam. What he's saying, this is a conversation between Yudhishthir and I think Narad Muni. So the discussion is going like this. Rajan patir gurur alam bhavatam yadunam daivam priya kulapati kwa cha kinkaro va astva evam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo muktim dadati kadhichit smana bhakti yogam. Now let us see each of these lines. Here Narad Muni is mentioning it to Yudhishthir Maharaj. Now the background for this verse is Yudhishthir Maharaj is glorifying Prahlad Maharaj. So both are devotees. Yudhishthir bhi devotee hai and Prahlad is also a devotee. So one devotee is always glorifies the another devotee. So Yudhishthir Maharaj is glorifying Prahlad Maharaj. See, Prahlad Maharaj was such a great devotee. He always got the association of the Lord. He offered his prayers to the Lord and so on, like he was mentioning. So countering Yudhishthir's claim, Narad Muni is mentioning to Yudhishthir Maharaj, O king, Mukunda is the maintainer and guru of Pandavas and Yadus. Rajan Patir Gurur Alam Bhavatam. Bhavatam means you all Pandavas and Yadunam means all the Yadus. Patir means maintainer. Gurur means spiritual master. O king, Mukunda is the maintainer of Guru and Pandavas, maintainer and Guru of Pandavas and the Yadus. Daivam Priya Kulapati Kvacha Kinkarova. Daivam. Daivam means he is your worshipable deity. Daiv. Priya, he is your friend. Kulapati, he is your guide. Kvacha Kinkarova, and sometimes works as your servant. Now this is the potency of pure bhakti. That even the Lord is willing to work as your servant, as your associate. So Lord Krishna worked for Pandavas. He went on behalf of Pandavas as Shanti Doot. He became the chariot driver of Arjuna and so on. So many menial, small services Lord Krishna did for Pandavas. So here Narad Muni is trying to explain to Yudhishthir Maharaj that Yudhishthir Maharaj, you Pandavas are even greater devotees to greater devotees than Prahlad Maharaj. Why? Because Krishna is actually working as your servant. Is your working as your servitor. But on the contrary, Astva evam anga bhagavan bhajatam mukundo. Those who are engaged in the bhajan of the Lord, muktim dadati kadhichit smana bhakti yogam. Muktim dadati kadhichit. Kadhichit means at any time. Such people can get mukti. Who can get mukti? Who are engaged in the bhajan of the Lord, who are performing devotional service of the Lord with attachment. They can easily get liberation at any time. But smana bhakti yogam. But bhakti, they do not get bhakti at all the times. He do not get bhakti at all the time. So what he's trying to say, Narad Muni is trying to say is that even you are working for the Lord, even if you are engaged in the bhakti of the Lord with attachment, then you can get liberation easily. But bhakti you don't get easily, even then. So the point we are trying to emphasize, or Srila Rupa Goswami is trying to emphasize here is, if you do bhakti without asakti, no question about it, you cannot get bhav bhakti or pure devotional service. if you do bhakti with asakti, with attachment, then also Krishna does not give it very easily. And then we will discuss this now, coming to this next slide. Even if one practices bhakti with attachment, Krishna does not offer it at all times. At all times means he may offer it. He may offer it, but not every time. That just because you are doing bhakti with attachment, Krishna will guaranteed give you uttama bhakti. No. But sometimes he can give. That's what it means. Why? Because pure bhakti has the power to control Krishna. So if Krishna gives pure bhakti, he becomes his servant. Like we discussed in the previous verse. Like Krishna became servant of Pandavas, Shantidut of Pandavas, Sarathi of Pandavas, like that. And it is something like signing power of attorney. So for example, if I sign power of attorney for somebody else and give this power to that person, that if you take any decision on my behalf, I will be bound to accept that decision. So we do not give power of attorney to anyone and everyone. Even if some people are close to us, still we don't give power of attorney to people who are close to us. We give power of attorney only to those people whom we are 110% sure that they will not go away or they will not mistrust us any time in their lives. That's where we give. So it is something like that. So unless one has intense asakti in sadhana bhakti, Lord does not give bhava bhakti. Lord does not give bhava bhakti. So the conclusion number 2 is Krishna is reluctant to give it. It does not mean that Krishna does not give it, but Krishna is very, very reluctant to give it, because this pure devotional service, if he gives to anyone, then Krishna will be bound to act according to the will of that pure devotee. Krishna cannot say no. If the pure devotee is asking, my dear Lord, please accept this kela, please accept this banana, please accept this apple, the Lord cannot say no. Lord has to agree, because he is the pure devotee of the Lord. So that is why here Srila Rupa Goswami is giving so many examples and so many instances how pure devotees is a pure devotional service is very, very rare. So 4 qualities we have discussed. Now coming to the 5th quality. 5th quality is Sandranand Vishesh Atma. Sandranand Vishesh Atma. So these Sanskrit words might seem very difficult, but if you understand the meaning of these words, actually they become an aid. You only remember 6 words, and then the whole concept of qualities of devotional service is in your fingertips. So Sandranand Visheshatma, what does it mean? So here the word Sandra. Sandra means dense, condensed, very, very tightly packed. The molecules are very, very tightly packed. Ananda means bliss, and Visheshatma means special. What it means is Bhakti is composed of a special condensed bliss. That what it means is Sandranand Visheshatma. And this topic is covered in 3 verses. And here in 2 paragraphs in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada has explained it. Now how do we understand Sandranand Visheshatma? Now imagine if there is air. So air is very loosely packed. It is very, very having a very small density. So anything can pierce through air. However, if there is water, it is more denser than air. So if you try to put something through the water, still it can pierce, but with difficulty. But if there is a metal, if there is a block of steel, which is very, very dense, if you try to pierce something through that block of steel, it cannot go through. It cannot pierce through. So that is the quality of bhakti. Nothing can penetrate metal because its molecular density is so concentrated. Similarly, prema bhakti is so concentrated that nothing else can penetrate it. So when the devotee is having prema bhakti of the Lord in his heart, then any other thing, material pleasure, liberation due to Brahman, etc., etc. Nothing can actually penetrate his heart. Nowhere, nothing comes close, cannot even go even a slightest bit inside the heart. So that is called Sandranand Visheshatma. So there is a bliss, there is a happiness in bhakti, and that happiness is so condensed. It is condensed with a special, it is composed of a special condensed bliss. Now let us see the references. Before we go to the references, this is the statement by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This statement is about comparison of Brahmanand versus Bhakti Anand. Brahmanand is the pleasure due to liberation into impersonal Brahman, and Bhakti Anand is the pleasure, Anand due to Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti or Prema Bhakti. What this verse says, Brahmanando bhavedesha cheta parardha gunikritaha naiti bhakti sukham bodhe paramanu tulam api naiti bhakti sukham bodhe paramanu tulam api. What does it say? The bliss of Brahman realization attained by samadhi, lasting for half of Brahma's life. So you have studied in Bhagavad Gita, we discussed this point that Brahma's life, Lord Brahma's life goes into trillions of years, very long life. So what does this first line is saying? Bliss of Brahman realization attained, bliss attained by Brahman realization for samadhi, and for how long? Lasting for half of Brahma's life. So already Brahma's life is very long. Even half of that life, if that bliss of Brahman realization goes on for such long period, it is still small. It cannot compare. It cannot compare. Naiti bhakti sukham bodhe. Bodh means feeling. Sukha means bliss. Cannot compare to even a drop of the ocean of happiness of bhakti. Parmanu tulam api. Parmanu means a very, very small item. Even a drop of the ocean of happiness of bhakti. So this is what the statement made by Rupa Goswami. And here he is making a reference from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. He's giving a reference from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. The gist of this reference is that when you take bliss, when you take darshan of the Lord, what is the quality of bliss that a devotee gets? So here Prahlad Maharaj is mentioning to Lord Nrsimhadev, I am being merged in an ocean of transcendental pleasure in your presence. I consider the happiness of impersonal Brahman as insignificant as the water in the hoof print of a cow. Water in the hoof print of a cow. So he is comparing the pleasure due to bhakti, the pleasure due to darshan of the Lord, with the merging of impersonal Brahman. And he's saying that pleasure of the darshan of you, my dear Lord, is something like ocean of transcendental pleasure. But the pleasure in the impersonal Brahman, merging into impersonal Brahman, is something like water in the hoof print of a cow. Hoof print of a cow means the cow has 4 legs. Now, when one of the leg gets penetrated into the sand, there's a print, there's a footprint of the cow. That print causes a little, I would say, a cup-like structure, a pool. If a water gets accumulated in that cup-like structure, which is resembling to the hoof print of a cow, how much water can come inside that? So that much water in the hoof print of a cow is compared to the ocean of transcendental pleasure of your presence. So Rupa Goswami is giving this reference from Hari Bhakti Sudhodaya. So this is the bliss of darshana of the Lord. Now, he gives another example. He gives another reference. This time it is about bliss of Krishna Katha. So previous example was bliss of darshanam. The next reference he is giving is bliss of Krishna Katha. What Rupa Goswami is saying, this is now from Bhavarth Deepika. This is another scripture. From Bhavartha Deepika, this has been quoted. Fortunate people play in the sweet ocean of the Lord's topics and enjoy greatest bliss. They consider the happiness from dharma, arth, kam, and moksha as insignificant as grass. So here, if you hear Krishna Katha, what kind of pleasure is mentioned? Sweet ocean, like you are floating in an ocean full of sweet water. So that is the pleasure of Krishna Katha. But happiness of dharma, arth, kam, and moksha are insignificant as grass. Grass means some dry grass. Who will like to eat grass? And what kind of taste somebody can get from grass? Limited and very, very distasteful. And compared to grass, playing in the sweet ocean, you can drink any amount, any quantity, any time. That is the comparison of bliss of Krishna. So here you can see we have discussed Sandranand Visheshatma. Sandranand means condensed bliss, special bliss in bhakti. And then Rupa Goswami compares, he mentions bhakti as something like ocean, and other bliss something like a very tiny insignificant water bodies in front of that ocean. Now here, so we have completed since till Sandranand Visheshatma, which is the fifth quality. Now this table gives you an idea of different type of happiness in different stages of bhakti. So we discussed in the beginning of the class, beginning of this course also, there are three types of bhakti. One is sadhana bhakti, means bhakti in practice. Then bhava bhakti means at advanced stage, bhakti in ecstasy, bhav with bhav. And then prema bhakti. Prema bhakti means bhakti in pure love of God. So these are different stages. So people like myself, people like in general, we are mostly situated in sadhana bhakti. We are doing bhakti by practice. So we in doing bhakti by practice in sadhana bhakti also we get pleasure. But the pleasure of bhakti in pleasure of sadhana bhakti is something which is compared to shubhada. So we have 6 stages: kleshagni, shubhada, then moksha lagutakrat, and then sudurlabha, then sandranand visheshatma, and then finally we will discuss krishna karshini. So sadhana bhakti is the stage, and the happiness that we get is of the level of shubhada. And what is the remark? The kind of happiness we get is superior to sense gratification and liberation. But in bhava bhakti, which is compared to moksha lagutakrit and also to the next stage, which is sudurlabha, the level of happiness, the quantity of happiness is so superior that sense gratification and liberation seem insignificant. So we get some happiness in this stage also, in bhava bhakti also, which is related to moksha lagutakrit. Then finally, Sandranand Visheshatma, this is about Prema Bhakti. It is so incalculably superior, so incalculably means you cannot even imagine, that one cannot even perceive the existence of sense gratification or liberation. So you can see that as these characteristics of pure devotional service manifest in our life, how the level of happiness actually increases in such exponential terms. This is superior. This is so superior that sense gratification, liberation seem insignificant. And this is so incalculably superior that one cannot even perceive the existence of sense gratification and liberation. So this is just to give you a little flavor of how do they compare with each other. Now coming to the final quality of Uttama Bhakti, which is Shri Krishna Akarshini. Shri Krishna Akarshini. So Bhakti is Shri Krishna Akarshini. What does it mean? Shri Krishna means Shri Krishna, our beloved Lord. Akarshini means attractive, attracts. So what is the sixth quality of pure devotional service? Bhakti attracts Krishna and his associates. So Uttama Bhakti or pure devotional service attracts even Lord Krishna. And not only Lord Krishna, his pure devotees also are attracted by Uttama Bhakti. Now, how do we understand this? We can understand this by some small names of Lord Krishna and names of Srimati Radhika. So, Srimati Radhika is considered as the topmost devotee. Like if we have a list of all the devotees of the world, pure devotees, not so pure devotees, and so on and so forth. So, the topmost name in that list would be of Srimati Radhika. So Srimati Radhika is the topmost pure devotee of the Lord. Although there are many, many pure devotees, but even within pure devotees also, Srimati Radharani is the topmost, number one, numero uno, in the list of devotees of the Lord. Now, Shri Krishna, Lord Krishna is, another name of Lord Krishna is Madan Mohan. Mohan means attracting. Madan means Cupid. Cupid means Kamadev. So generally Kamadev attracts everyone. Kamadev have these arrows of flower, Pushpaban. And whenever Kamadev throws these arrow, Pushpaban to another person, that person gets attracted towards Kamadev. But Lord Krishna has such a reputation. Lord Krishna is so powerful and his beauty is so powerful that even Kamadev gets attracted towards Lord Krishna. So that it means Madan Mohan. So Lord Krishna is Madan Mohan, which means that a person who even attracts Madan. Madan means Cupid, Kamdev. But what is the potency of pure devotee? Potency of pure devotee, and as an example, I am giving you here the name of Srimati Radhika. What's the name of Srimati Radhika? Madan Mohan Mohini. So Mohini, who even attracts Madan Mohan. So Krishna attracts Cupid, Kamdev, and Srimati Radhika attracts such a person who attracts Kamdev. So that is the potency of the pure devotee. So that is what it means, Shri Krishna Akarshini. Now here, Srila Rupa Goswami in this 41st verse makes a statement, and then he supports his statement by giving references. So first of all, let us see what Srila Rupa Goswami is saying. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Bhakti is called Shri Krishna Akarshini because it makes Krishna addicted to love, Prem Bhajam, and brings him under control along with his associates. Priya Varga. Associates, Lord's associates are known as Priya Varga. Varga means group and Priya means dear. Prema is attractive to him. Prema is attractive to Shri Krishna. So in order to perform bhakti means to perform the footsteps of Radharani. So who is our topmost leader in bhakti? Our topmost leader is the topmost bhakta, topmost pure devotee, and that is Srimati Radharani. If we want to learn how to perform Uttama Bhakti, we should know, we should try to understand how Srimati Radhika Rani is performing bhakti towards Lord Krishna. And that's how we will understand how do we do pure bhakti or how do we do Uttama Bhakti for the Lord. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami starts to give references. What he's saying? He's giving a reference from Srimad Bhagavatam. He's saying, Krishna told Uddhava, Prema Bhakti rendered by my devotees brings me under their control. Those engaged in yoga, sankhya, karma, Vedic study, austerity or renunciation cannot control me. So this is an example, this is a reference Srila Rupa Goswami is giving from Srimad Bhagavatam, where the Lord clearly mentions to Uddhava, Prema Bhakti rendered by my devotee. If a devotee is doing Prema Bhakti to me, I come under his control. मैं उनके control में आ जाता हूँ. I leave my, I cannot dictate my terms. I am dictated by devotees' terms. And those engaged in yoga, sankhya, karma, Vedic study, austerity cannot control me. I appreciate. I don't say that these things that they are doing are not good, but I cannot get under their control because just because they are doing yoga, sankhya, karma, etc. But if somebody is doing prema bhakti, I have lost my control. I just under the control of the devotee. And that was the status of Pandavas. That was the status of Yudhishthira. That was the status of Arjuna. Now, Rupa Goswami, when he gave that reference, previous reference from Srimad Bhagavatam, his heart was not satisfied. Because original statement, what did he make? The original statement, he comes under the control along with his associates. So in this statement, he only talked about Lord Krishna, only talked about him. But in the second statement, he also give a reference where the devotees of the Lord also get under the control of the pure devotee. So here Narad Muni told Yudhishthir, all of you Pandavas are extremely fortunate, more than even Prahlad. For Krishna lives in your palace just like a human being, and knowing this, great saints visit this house. Great saints visit this house. Just because Lord Krishna is staying in the Pandavas' house, many of the saints that get attracted towards the Lord, they also actually get attracted to the devotee who is performing this prema bhakti. So Krishna is attracted to Pandavas' devotion. Srila Rupa Goswami give another reference where he has added another detail that not only Lord got attracted, but people who are associated with the Lord, Priya Varga, that is also attracted to the prema bhakti or to the devotional service of the Lord. Okay. Now we have finished all the 6 qualities of pure devotional service in this chapter number 1 of Nectar of Devotion. But in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, the book that has been written by Srila Rupa Goswami, the chapter number 1 does not end only by narrating these 6 qualities of pure devotional service. There is an additional section by the name Conclusion. After Rupa Goswami stops narrating about the 6 qualities of pure devotional service. Now, these conclusions, these 3 verses, 44, 45, 46, which are the conclusion of wave 1 of the eastern division of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, are actually described by Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion in chapter number 2 of his book. But we will complete that part in today's class itself. So, let us see what it is. So, in this conclusion of Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, wave number 1, Srila Rupa Goswami makes a statement. He makes a statement that now we are going to study 3 different types of bhakti. And what are these 3 different types of bhakti? Sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. We are about to start a discussion on this topic. But before we go into that discussion, please try to understand that the 6 qualities that we have studied so far. What are those 6 qualities? Kleshagni, Shubhada, Moksh Laguta Krat, Su Durlabha, Sandra Anand Visheshatma, and Shri Krishna Akarshini. We have discussed these 6 qualities, and we are going to discuss 3 stages of bhakti: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. But before we start the discussion, please try to understand that 2 qualities appear in each type of bhakti. 2 qualities out of 6 qualities, 2 qualities appear in each type of bhakti. What does it mean? Sadhana bhakti is the lowest stage, bhakti in practice. That's what sadhana bhakti means. So the first 2 qualities, what are the first 2 qualities? Kleshagni, and the second was Shubhada. So Kleshagni and Shubhada appear in the stage of sadhana bhakti. Shubhada and Kleshagni. You can see the happiness derived by Shubhada and Kleshagni, or the symptoms of Shubhada and Kleshagni at sadhana bhakti stage itself. The stage of mind, the stage of, in general, many of the devotees that we come across in general. But if you move to Bhava Bhakti, two more qualities are added. So Shubhada and Kleshagni is also there in Bhava Bhakti, but two more qualities are added. What are those? Sudurlabha and Moksha Laghutakrat. So at the stage of Bhava, the four qualities of devotional services are there. And further, if you move to the Prema Bhakti stage, two more qualities are further added. What are those? Shri Krishna Akarshini and Sandranand Vishesh Atma. These are also added. So in Prema Bhakti, you see this is a big circle. So in this big circle, you have all six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of them. But in Bhava Bhakti, you have only 4 of them. Sudurlabha, Moksha Laghutakrat, Subhada and Kleshagni. But in Sadhana stage, only 2 are there, which is Shubhada and Kleshagni. So this is a concluding remark Rupa Goswami is presenting at the end of wave number 1, that 2 qualities appear in each type of bhakti. We will study about this later also. And then finally, in the last 2 verses of wave number 1 of Nectar of Devotion, the qualification for practicing devotional service is mentioned. So what qualification a devotee need actually for doing devotional service, for doing bhakti? The simple qualification is that one who has little taste for bhakti can understand bhakti. If you have some taste for bhakti, then only you can understand bhakti. You can understand it. But if you don't have a slight taste of bhakti, even a little taste of bhakti, you cannot understand it. But how do we get this taste? We get this taste from our previous life. If we have done bhakti in our previous life, we can get this taste. And then Rupa Goswami makes another statement: understanding bhakti only with dry logic will not work. If simply we are making arguments, we are giving logic, then we cannot understand bhakti at all. That's what Rupa Goswami is saying. So, but this does not mean that logic does not have any value. If a person is a logical person, if a person is an analytical person, he can do some logic. But if he also has taste of bhakti, then what is the result? Then you can understand bhakti. You can understand bhakti. Logic with taste of bhakti can give you understanding of bhakti. But if you have taste of bhakti, then you can actually experience bhakti. With logic, you can understand bhakti. And we also have discussed about Uttama Adhikari, the topmost devotees. Uttama Adhikari is endowed with skill in scriptural knowledge plus logic plus taste. So what Uttama Adhikari has? These qualities. Uttama Adhikari has got taste of bhakti, the basic requirement. He also has logic, the advanced stage, although not mandatory. He also has logical understanding of bhakti, so he understands it deeply. And at the same time, he also has skill of scriptural knowledge. So Uttama Adhikari is endowed with skill in scriptural knowledge. He has logic and he has got taste also. And with this, Uttama Adhikari actually can convince others also about pure devotional service. So these are the other fine points that you will study in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, verse number 45 and 46. And briefly, these are mentioned in chapter number 2 of Nectar of Devotion, paragraph number 2 and paragraph number 3. So we have, in one way, we have already started our study on chapter number 2 of Bhakti Nectar of Devotion, summary study by Prabhupada. So this small point that I just made in the previous slide, we can understand like this. If we have attraction for bhakti, if we have taste for bhakti, then we can do bhakti. We can execute bhakti. When we execute bhakti, we get more taste, we get more attraction. We further continue to execute bhakti. Like that, this cycle keeps on going on. This attraction keeps on increasing by every time we continue to execute bhakti. Now, this is a cycle. This is a cycle where the basic qualification of doing bhakti is to have some taste of bhakti. Now, the question may arise, if a person is there who does not have even a slightest taste of bhakti, what happens with him? Can he not become a devotee? Can she not become a devotee? So the answer is, they can also become devotee. But how they can become devotee? They can become devotee by getting causeless mercy of other devotees. Like you are devotees, like there are many other devotees in the world. When these devotees go out and give their causeless mercy to such people who does not have even a small taste of bhakti, then these people can develop agyat sukratis. This is what it means, agyat sukratis. Agyat means unknown. Sukriti means good deeds, good karya, good actions. So when devotees go out and give prasad to other people, when devotees go out and chant in public places, Harinam, do kirtan and so on, or devotee takes somebody with them to the temple, like that, if devotee give them these kind of agyat sukritis, then one fine day they will develop a fine or small taste or attraction for bhakti, and then this cycle will start. They will start from sadhana, they will execute bhakti, give more taste, and so on. So whenever devotees are going out in the street, distributing prasad, distributing books, talking to different people about devotional service and so on, they are giving their causeless mercy, and by this causeless mercy, they are giving their agyat sukriti to these people, by which their attraction for bhakti can start, and their devotional life in form of sadhana bhakti can continue to grow like that. So with that small details, I think I would say that we have covered in entirety wave 1 of Eastern Division of Bhakti Samrat Sindhu. We have covered chapter number 1 of Nectar of Devotion and a little small beginning part of chapter number 2, which we will continue to discuss in our coming classes. So with that, I think we have completed this chapter number 1. All glories to the Nectar of Devotion. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Any questions, any takeaways, any comments, we can discuss now. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
धन्यवाद।
Yes. धन्यवाद जी।
इसका मतलब तो आपकी कृपा से मैं ये समझा हूं कि पिछले जन्म में हम जरूर कृष्ण भक्ति में लीन थे, तभी इस जन्म में आप जैसे गुरु का साथ मिला और गीता का वो सुनने का, समझने का, पढ़ने का अवसर मिला।
या देखिए, हम we are approaching to many people regarding coming to our classes and so on. Even if you recall, there were many other friends of yours were also invited to the class.
जी गुरुजी।
But somehow some other devotees could not continue, or maybe just they dropped out. But
मैं गुरुजी उनसे बहुत बार पूछा था, उन्होंने 3 बार मेरे को, मेरा एक मापदंड है, जो मेरे से 3 बार रिक्वेस्ट करता है तब मैं उसका करता हूँ, तो इसलिए मैंने उनको आपसे इंट्रोड्यूस कराया। नहीं तो मैं बहुत सारे लोग पूछते हैं,
I'm not making a personal comment on anyone, but you can see this very normal and very natural. If people don't have that taste, the classes will not make sense to them and they will drop out.
जी वो तो खैर उनका डिस्क्रिशन है।
Yeah. But the point is, there is some inherent taste of different degrees in different people.
जी गुरुजी।
Yeah.
तो ये इसका मतलब वो जो आपने पहले समझाया था, कर्म जो प्रारब्ध है पुराने कर्मों की, पुराने जन्म की, उसकी वजह से हम आपके साथ जुड़े हुए हैं।
हाँ, पूर्व जन्मों में आपने भक्ति करी है, स्टार्ट कर चुके हैं आप प्रोसेस।
जी गुरु।
और वो जो एक छोटा सा अट्रैक्शन या जितना भी बड़ा अट्रैक्शन आपके हृदय में है, वो आपको इन पुस्तकों के प्रति आकर्षण आपका वही आपको अभी तक बनाए हुए है। मैं आपको कोई पैसे नहीं दे रहा हूँ, मैं आपको कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं कर रहा हूँ, कि आप
जी, गुरु
आए,
जी।
बैठे, सुने,
जी
भाग लें,
जी
पर आप
जी
आते
गुरु
हैं,
जी
आप
गुरु
सुनते
जी
हैं।
जी
तो ये
गुरु
जब
जी
भी संभव है कि जब आपका पूर्व जन्मों का कुछ भगवान का भक्ति किया हुआ है, दैट इज
जी
पॉसिबल
गुरु
ओनली बिकॉज ऑफ दैट। या
जी गुरु जी, थैंक यू गुरु जी। हाँ, ये कभी कभी शंका मन में उठती थी कि भाई इसके लिए ये प्रारब्ध है या गुरु कृपा है या एनवायरमेंट संगति का असर है या मतलब ज्ञान का या विद्या का या लिटरल एजुकेशन का या इन सब का मिला जुला मिश्रण है।
या
तो
चलिए,
इसलिए आपसे आज क्लियर हो गया। थैंक यू गुरु जी,
धन्यवाद जी।
धन्यवाद जी।
अन्य अन्य कोई प्रश्न, अन्य कोई टिप्पणी, एनी अदर कमेंट और एनी अदर क्वेश्चन?
So Prabhuji, so in the future classes, जैसे कि हम we will study more on the all these three bhaktis, sadhana, bhav और prem bhaktis, correct?
Yes,
And
yes.
our inclination is to move from sadhana bhakti to prema bhakti, correct? That is what,
Yeah.
because you
When we
said
do
that
sadhana
now.
bhakti, when we do sadhana bhakti, then it manifests into bhav, and
Okay.
then bhav manifests into prem. But starting is sadhana bhakti.
Sadhana bhakti, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other question? Any other comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Shankar.
I think some kind of taste, as you say, is already there. That is why we are sort of attracted to your class, or we look forward to know more and more.
Yeah.
So sadhana is there. Plus, I think we are being benefited by this exercise. So that is being added to it. So it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
I think very comforting effort. It looks at this stage, and
Yeah.
maybe we progress bit by bit. That
Correct.
gives us hope. Past there
Yeah.
was some connection. Present it has been established. It appears, and so things may come to our advantage in the
Right. Right.
future. So this is the hope right now
Yes.
I'm feeling.
Yes. Yes. Now that is one part, and very well mentioned by you. But what I also like to bring everyone's attention is the way Rup Goswami has presented it. It is so systematic, it is so scientific, it is so related with each other and so crystal clear. There is no kind of you can say uncertainty or ambiguity or anything like that. So that's why it is known as science of bhakti. It is
Right.
so, the process is so well documented and so nicely documented by Srila Rupa Goswami that you can only imagine how gifted, how talented, how divinely elevated these people were who wrote these books, who wrote the
Right.
commentaries on these books, isn't it?
Very
So we who are people following Sanatan Dharma don't value our heritage, which is the best heritage, at least in my opinion, in the whole world. Where can you find such knowledge presented with so scientific clarity anywhere in the world on the topic of spirituality? I cannot imagine and I cannot think of any other sect, religion, etc., where I can get such crystal clear understanding of how to get attracted towards the Lord. What is the nature of that attraction? What is the nature of that love? So well documented. That's what really amazes me personally. When I read these books, when I read the description of the commentaries mentioned, and so I really get wonderstruck, and I really feel so fortunate that I came across all these teachings. That's what my kind of realization when I read these books. And that's what I would like to share with all the devotees assembled in this class. And generally, when I see people feeling ashamed that they are Sanatan, follower of Sanatan Dharma, I just feel that I should actually reach out to these people and teach these books to them, so that they can at least get an idea what they are missing actually, isn't it?
Very right, Prabhu.
So yes, so with that little emotional outburst from my heart,
No,
I
emotions
would,
are very important, no doubt about.
yeah. So if there is no question or comment, I would then try to put this class to a rest.
Hare
This
Krishna,
week I
Prabhu.
will. Yes, Jaimala Mataji, you had something to say?
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you
Yes,
so
Mataji.
much for the very insightful class. I felt, personally, I felt this class was relatively easier than the
Mhm.
previous classes. It was relatively easier to understand.
Yeah.
Just a small doubt, Prabhuji. When we
Mhm.
say bhakti, uh,
Mhm.
is bhakti a separate entity in itself? Because we call it, we call her as Bhakti Devi also. And we also have heard that she is very independent, and she has two sons, like knowledge
Jnana and
and
Vairagya.
virakti. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Jnana and Vairagya.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So is she to be considered a separate entity in itself? And she's very independent. She like only fortunate pure devotees will be able to get the fortune of having that
Yeah.
bhakti
So
in their
I
life. Yes.
I may not have a very accurate answer for it. Maybe I have to also check with somebody. But whatever I have understood so far, maybe I can share with you. When we talk about Bhakti Devi having two sons like Gyan and Vairagya, that is, I think, more of an analogy. A mother, Bhakti Devi, has, because what it means is, if you have bhakti, if you only have bhakti, then Gyan and Vairagya automatically follows it. You don't have to make a separate endeavor for it. What it means is, simply if you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one fine day that Gyan and Vairagya will manifest in your heart. You don't have to make a separate endeavor. So Gyan and Vairagya are two sons of Bhakti Devi, means they are subordinate to Bhakti. So that is something, the way it is presented, it is more like an analogy. But if you talk about Bhakti personified, personification of Bhakti, then personification of Bhakti is Srimati Radharani. She is Bhakti personified. If you have to imagine someone who has only Bhakti and Bhakti and Bhakti and nothing else, then the picture that comes in our mind is only Srimati Radhika. She is the pure devotee which even attracts Lord Krishna. So this is how I would understand it. But yes, you are right. We are also talking about Bhakti Devi. But I think when we talk about Bhakti Devi, we are referring to Srimati Radhika. That's how I would understand it. Yeah. But
Okay, thank you.
we can check with more other devotees also, if that understanding is sufficient or if there is something more to it.
हरे कृष्णा
Thank
गुरु
you.
जी.
Yes,
हरे कृष्ण.
Prabhu. Yeah.
हाँ जी, ये बाबा नानक ने, अभी टाइम कम है, नेक्स्ट टाइम मैं आपको बताऊंगा. जब माता ने उनको पूछा कि भाई तू कहाँ जा रहा है त्रिपका, माता ने तीसरी जब फेरी लगाने लगे, वो एक फेरी लगाई थी उन्होंने मक्का मदीना एंड बैक, सेकंड लगाई थी फ्रॉम हिमालय टू बनारस एंड बैक. जब थर्ड लगाने लगे तब उन्होंने बोला कि मैं माता तेरे बिना कहीं जाता नहीं हूँ. वो बड़ी हैरान हुई. उसने बोला मैं तो यहाँ होती हूँ, मेरे अलावा तेरी कोई और भी माता है? तब उन्होंने बताया कि आत्मा क्या परिवार होता है. तो मैं अगली बार संतों की उसके लिए, भक्ति उनका बेटा है आत्मा का. उसमें अकॉर्डिंग टू गुरु नानक देव, तो उसमें सारा उन्होंने बताया. मेरी माता कौन है? मत माता, सुरत पिता, श्रम सास, ये इस तरह ससुर का बताया है सारा.
जी.
तो
ओके.
हाँ, तो शादी का बताया उसका. तो मैं उसमें भक्ति जो है वो उनकी बेटे का नाम उन्होंने अपने बोला, भक्ति रूपी बेटा है, एंड लाइक दैट. तो पूरा गुरु ग्रंथ साहब में है, 1879 पेज पर है। वो
ओके
आत्मा का उन्होंने भक्ति बोला फैमिली है, उसमें ही है।
ओके
तो शुरू
ठीक
होते
है।
हैं मत माता सुरत पिता एंड देन ऑल दैट, जैसे पवन गुरु यू नो
ओके जी,
धरती
ओके
महत एंड ऑल दैट है ना।
ओके
ये है
ओके
जय गुरु जी। और
ओके जी,
आपका
धन्यवाद।
भाग्य नहीं है, हमारा हो भाग्य है कि हमें आप जैसा गुरु मिला।
जी जी जी,
दैट इज
धन्यवाद।
माय फीलिंग एंड आई एम
Okay.
श्योर जितने भी हम लोग आपको फॉलो कर रहे हैं, सबके लाइफ में, डे टू डे लाइफ में बहुत अंतर आया है,
चलिए
बहुत
धन्यवाद।
सारा फर्क पड़ा है। मेरे को अपना मालूम है, लेकिन मैं समझता हूँ जैसे ईश्वर भाई या और भी जितने बड़े अच्छे अच्छे संत हैं हमारे सत्संगी हैं, उनका सुनता हूँ तो बड़ा बहुत खुशी होती है कि आई एम
जी
श्योर सबके जीवन में, डे टू डे लाइफ में, घर परिवार के उसमें व्यवहार में बहुत फर्क है।
जी,
और
चलिए
आप इसी
धन्यवाद।
तरह कृपा बनाते रहें
ओके जी,
हमारे ऊपर, और ऑफ कोर्स मेन तो जो
ओके जी, ओके जी। जय माला माता जी को मैं जस्ट एक लास्ट टाइम बोलना चाहूंगा कि इन केस देयर हैज बीन एनी डिफिकल्टी इन प्रीवियस क्लासेस, just identify them and find some time to discuss. You want to discuss in a general forum, that is also fine. You can discuss. You want to discuss privately, that also is fine. You can give me a call. But my suggestion is, request is, keep those doubts away as much as possible. So that will really increase your understanding. Also, together with the class, when you start reading books, many of those things will get solved or sorted out at that stage also. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. I
Okay.
usually go through the recordings and then make notes, so that makes it quite
Yeah.
easier. The
Right,
topic
right.
of Kleshagni was a bit for me personally
Klesh-
difficult
yeah.
to understand.
Yeah.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah. Yes.
Kleshagni is
One
a
more.
little technical.
Yes,
Kleshagni
yes,
is more
yes.
technical. Yeah. Correct.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So
Yeah.
just one more thing. I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of your time,
No problem. No
Prabhuji.
problem. Yeah.
So today, so in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Susukham Kartu Abhyayan. This process of devotional service is joyously performed. He
Yes.
says that word, he uses saying Susukham. So here, when the quality of pure devotional service, one of the qualities is Sudurlabha. So how do we reconcile both, Prabhuji? Is it like, that the process is easy, joyously performed, but Krishna does not award bhakti to
Yeah.
everyone so easily?
Correct. So compared to other processes, it is susukham. Like if you compare it with the process of jnana and yoga, it is very, very difficult. Say, even if you consider the process of jnana and yoga, you at least need to have a basic level of purity. Basic level of purity means you should have something like, if you talk about varnashram, you should have purity or consciousness, something of the level of a brahmana. Then only you can perform jnana and yoga. You cannot perform jnana, jnana and yoga if you have consciousness of a vaishya or a shudra or even a kshatriya. Because kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, they have mode of passion, rajoguna is there. But at the level of brahmana, you need to have mostly sattva guna. Then only you are qualified to do something like jnana and yoga. So bhakti does not see any qualification. The only qualification is you need to have some taste. That's it. So like you see, even in if you read chapter number 9, verse number 34, where Lord Krishna talks about that Istri, Shudra, and different classes he mentions. So why he mentioning that? Even if you are born in these classes, you can still perform bhakti and attain the topmost destination. But in jnana and vairagya, or in jnana and yoga, you cannot. The classes will not qualify even to perform those practices. So that is why it is susukham. You can simply read Bhagavad Gita, you say simply read Ramayana, you can simply perform some arati of the Lord, you can offer flower to the Lord. The bhakti has started. It is so easy. It is so sukham. So sukham means joyfully performed. So that is what it is. But for doing jnana and yoga, you have to read Upanishads. You have to meditate for long hours. Long hours, not only for one day, for so many days. For continuously you need to practice. We just now discussed in the class today, jnana and karma need to be done to be performed for thousands of times with single pointed dedication, with so much of skill. Then also you don't get bhakti, you get liberation at the most. So that's what the Lord is describing. It is so easy, so joyfully performed. Simply do kirtan, play mridang, nice music, kirtan, that's it. Bhakti is being done. You get attraction for the Lord. That's what it means, Susukham. I hope that makes
Thank you. Yes, thank you,
sense.
Prabhuji. Sorry, I took a lot of your time. Thank
No,
you.
no problem. No
Hare
problem. Okay.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Okay, ji. So we close the discussion today and we continue to meet next time. Most likely I'm going to prepare quiz. We have also one quiz pending for Nectar of Instruction, and now we have also a due of a quiz for Nectar of Devotion. At least 5 classes. We should do some quiz, we should do some discussion. So any other doubts people may have, we can remove those doubts. So thank you very much. I will try my best to come up with the quiz. If we don't, then we continue with the class and continue to prepare my quiz and issue it at the right time. Thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, thank you.
Yes,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you.
Connect.